All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Today's episode is presented by Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, Sunny Lackawanna, just down or up the road, depending on which way you're coming from. Highmark Stadium, like 5 minutes away. Some of the best wings and food and vibes that you'll get anywhere in town. Big thank you again, Sunny Reds. This is our midweek episode, which means, as usual, I'm joined by my buddy, Matt Warren from SB Nation. What's going on, buddy? How you doing, man?
Oh, everything's going well. It's the middle of December, so everyone's gearing up for Christmas on top of Bills games, on top of my son's hockey games, all that stuff. It's that time of year.
Yeah, it is. It's it's definitely a busy time of the year. I did a little bit of Christmas shopping. I've only been out once, and I did it before the Bills game on Sunday, early in the day, and that was a big mistake, man. I won't be doing that again during a prime shopping day anyway. It was everybody was thinking like me. Let's go out and get some shit done before the Bills play. We're gonna talk plenty of Bills today, kind of like a hodgepodge. The primary thing that I want to focus on, which we'll get to, and I kind of got these in random order, but I definitely want to have a discussion about Matt Milano. And do you think the Bills are going to reach a point where they're going to have a dilemma on what to do with Matt Milano based on what we've seen for the first 2 weeks? We're going to talk about that. I want to talk about Sean McDermott, who just creates new mistakes. He learns from them, but he just finds new ones when he learns from the old ones. So we'll hit on that. Khalil Shakir, just Josh Allen. There's a lot of stuff that I want to get to today. Most of it revolving around the Bills. We'll talk a little bit, as usual, when I have you on about the AFC as well. Before we get into anything specific, I kind of wanted just to get your general takeaway. We're talking like by the time this drops now, it's midweek. The game was, 2.5 days ago. So kind of in the rearview mirror. We're looking forward to Detroit, obviously, at this point. But as I've reflected on this game, Matt, over the past few days, I think my biggest general takeaway, as opposed to individual, but my general big picture takeaway with this game is I'm not upset at all. I'm really not. I mean, in the heat of the moment, I was a little annoyed. I was, especially at the defense, the coaching, stuff like that, when I did a live post-game show right after. But as time has went on, I've gotten over it quick. And I actually, this might sound stupid to some people, but even though they lost this game, and I'm not one of those guys who says, "Oh, it's better off they lost." Not really. But what I will say is, I feel like I have more confidence in this football team right now than I did before this game, even though they lost, because that offense is legit. We knew it was legit, but they showed that they could go to another level. I don't think the defense will be that bad. And the one thing, Matt, before I turn this over to you, that I do want to point out that I haven't really said enough over the last 2 days, watching the game back, the Rams offense was almost perfect. Like, it's not like there were a lot of cases where the defense was there and Stafford just dropped a perfect dime, or Puka up just made a perfect catch. You know what I mean? It was like it was the perfect storm. That offense, just everything went right for them, and they operated at 100%. And people who've played the Bills have seen it sometimes with Josh Allen. You feel like you do everything right, and Josh Allen still beats you anyway. I kind of feel like in some regards, at least to some extent, that one was like the Rams offense just was perfect on this day. But what's like your big picture takeaway from this game?
The Rams definitely were great on Sunday. I guess what I keep talking about when people like come up and start talking to me about the Bills and this past weekend is, the Rams backs were up against the wall and they were the more desperate team. And I think it showed. I thought that might happen the week before against the 49ers, but then with the snow and the Bills like punching them in the mouth right off the bat, it kind of turned into a little bit of a different game. The 49ers folded, whereas the Rams just kept the gas on the pedal because they were desperate the whole time. So I do think there is a natural tendency for that letdown to happen a little bit. They've clinched a playoff spot. they were probably not going to get the 1 seed anyway, so they were kind of locked into like that 2-3 zone. Um, so like I think it's natural to not have that desperation that the Rams had at 6-6. Um, that being said, the Bills almost pulled this game out, even with all of that stuff against them. And I think it's going to be the same way against the Lions this week. The Lions are in a huge fight at the top of not just their division, but the NFC in general. So, like, if they lose a game this week to the Bills, like, they might be going somewhere else, during the playoffs instead of hosting it at Detroit, where they obviously want it. So, it's not going to get better for the Bills this week against Detroit in terms of the other team's desperation. And so I'm with you. I'm not like a fan of a loss, but like as losses go, I'm not really worried about this one.
I'm with you on the desperation point from the Rams, 100%. But I'll say this. The desperation was on both sides of the ball. They needed to win the game. The Rams defense was desperate to have a good game and slow Josh Allen down, and they didn't. It didn't
Correct.
matter. Josh Allen was just better than them, as were other players on the offense. But the Rams offense is just, I feel like I haven't tipped my cap enough to the Rams at the end of the day. Puka Nacua, was that the best? I always say Travis Henry, man. As I look up right now, you know what? Hold on, man. As I look up here, if you're watching on the video side, that's why I always say Travis Henry instead of Derrick Henry, because I still got my Travis Henry Buffalo Bills bobblehead that I'm popping here. But no, not Travis Henry, Derrick Henry. He had a huge game against the Bills. But, man, he ripped off that 87-yard run on the very first play of the game. And he was really good after that. But from top to bottom, is it safe? Because Puka Nacua, that was the best that anybody has played against the Buffalo Bills all year. I mean, this dude was just sensational, man. It was frustrating to watch it on film. That tiptoe catch he made along the sidelines was just absolutely ridiculous, man.
Right, and especially when you pair him, especially when you pair him with the Cooper Kupp of it all. Like Kupp was out lead blocking on so many of those the cool plays, and then you already mentioned it, Stafford with some of those pinpoint passes. Like it was going to be hard for anybody to beat those three on Sunday, just like it was going to be hard for anybody to beat Josh Allen on Sunday. But one of those teams had to set like that NFL record and lose, scoring 6 touchdowns with no turnovers.
It's crazy. And I'm sitting here in my office. I show you guys the Travis Henry bobblehead. Before the show, I was looking at this Buffalo Bills game day book, and I don't know how well you could see it, but it's Greg Bell, and this is from 1985. And for you old Buffalo Bills fans out there, or for your young ones, I should say, this was pre Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, Bruce Smith, all these guys. This was the 2-14 Buffalo Bills with the biggest Swiss defense that you'll ever see. And I felt it was kind of fitting that I'm looking at a game day program from 1985 because the Bills defense against the Rams looked very much like the 1985 Buffalo Bills defense there as well. Before we get into some like more serious topics, my big picture was I think the Bills are going to learn from this loss. I think the defense knows that they just have to play better. As simple as that. Bobby Babich was a little bit critical of his players on Monday, which I like that actually. I don't mind that whatsoever. More specifically, Ed Oliver, who we'll talk about here in a few minutes as well. I've had plenty to say about him all week. That's going to continue today. A little spoiler alert for fans out there. But before that, dude, I think, Matt, that we kind of take it for granted a little bit as Bills fans, content creators, media, whatever it may be, just how good we have it right now. How much fun it is week after week to watch Josh Allen play football. Like, that's my other big takeaway from Sunday. Forget about the game. Forget about their record, what they got left, what they may or may not end up doing this season. As a fan, somebody, who is, and I'm an older fan, okay? And I know a lot of young people out there, okay? I'm old, all right? I grew up, Joe Ferguson was borderline before my time, I was very, very young when he was the Bills quarterback. And then you had, a couple bums, and then you get to the Jim Kelly era and you get spoiled. And then you see what happens after that. And it wasn't pretty. Little promises here and there with guys like Flutie and stuff, but just nothing sustainable. And then guys who will just generally say it didn't work out. Um, and now we live in this era right now where Josh Allen plays football every Sunday, and you get to watch it. He might be my favorite Buffalo Bills player of all time. I'm almost at that point now where I'm ready to say that. And again, I came of age during the Super Bowl era where the Bills brought everybody great joy. You know what I mean? It was
Oh yes.
you can't a lot of people just don't understand what that's like to know to follow a team that won 4 straight AFC championships and went to the Super Bowl 4 straight years because the Bills haven't done that. But just Josh Allen is just such a joy to watch. And he plays football at a level you just don't see often in this league ever. And I guess my long-winded thing here, Matt, is that we got it good, man. We got it really, really good right now with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and as I've transitioned into this more national role, and I'm watching more quarterback play around the league, it really is something like that. If you're only watching Bills games, that you really don't get a sense of the quarterback play around the league. And like Dak, Cowboys fans like hate Dak Prescott or they love him. There's like not really a whole lot of in between. But like the folks that are critical of him, like he led the league in passing. Like he's a really, really good quarterback. And there's a big chunk of Cowboys fans that just don't like him. And so the fact that all of the Bills fans are like rallying behind Josh Allen, it's fun to talk about him. Like he makes those plays you want to talk about. It's not just like ho hum, passing with yards after catch. Like he makes highlight reel plays, MVP plays. It's just fun to have that conversation after the fact with other Bills fans too. And so if you're not watching other quarterback games, or even if you're watching Red Zone, like Red Zone isn't really great for like evaluating quarterback play around the NFL. You have to watch like whole games to see kind of how the
Right.
flow of the
Yeah.
game goes, and bad plays, not just like highlight plays. So I mean, if you're watching like Thursday night football, even like Monday night football, with the Bengals and the Cowboys, like you can see the huge difference, obviously, between Cooper Rush and Joe Burrow. And so like it's fun to watch good quarterbacks around the league, but it's also fun for Bills fans to watch bad quarterbacks around the league and see that your guy is like, absolutely a joy to watch, as you put it.
Just think about even the last 3 weeks, the ride that this guy
Yeah.
has put fans on. You go back to the Kansas City game and all the good things he did, and of course the 4th-2 play, he scores the game-winning touchdown. You think about that. Then you go to the 49ers game and the lateral with Amari Cooper and just I don't know, the excitement. And then, there was no one specific play in the Rams game, but it was just so many different things, whether it was running the football, the dimes that he dropped some. I mean, Stafford dropped
He
some
did.
dimes too, but obviously
Mhm.
Josh Allen did. I try so hard to just not take that for granted, that we got a quarterback that's just so much fun to watch. And,
What was it? The long 2nd and 23 run, I think it was like they got backed up on 1st and 30 after the
first and 30, yeah.
face mask call on Spencer Brown, and they freaking converted it because Josh Allen did that like winding run up the sideline. That was like the one play where you're just like, I don't like you've seen Mahomes do stuff like that, but just the stuff he can do between those types of runs, the passes that he can throw, and then that red zone efficiency where he can just like go through people to get into the end zone. He's a unicorn. He's one of one. It's just so much fun to watch him play.
I said that, and by the way, to your point to that drive, I tweeted during the game. The Bills have that one drive every game where stupid penalties kill a drive. They do it once a game. And I was like, well, here it goes again. You had the face mask penalty. There was Brown and Indiana Dawkins had a false start the very next play and it's 1st and 30. I'm like, yep, there goes that drive. And I didn't go that drive because the Bills scored a touchdown on it. I said on the show, and I got some pushback, and I understand why. But in my opinion, I think Josh Allen's the best player in the NFL right now. That's my truthful, honest, non-homer opinion. And I know that will ruffle some feathers, especially with people, Patrick Mahomes, to say, what are you talking about? This dude's won 3 Super Bowls. I agree. And I also said, when it's all said and done, he very well may go down as the greatest quarterback who's ever played football. He may surpass Tom Brady someday. I'm not saying any of that's not true because I do believe that. But right now, in the year 2024, in December, a couple weeks here before Christmas, I'm telling you that Josh Allen is the best player, period, right now in the NFL. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, just because of the multiple ways that he can beat you and how defenses have to scheme for him. And I mean, obviously they're scheming for Patrick Mahomes, but like that the Chiefs are kind of on that downward slide. I know they're number one seed and all this other stuff, but they're kind of on like that backslide right now, where the Bills, like, instead of backsliding, kind of reloaded and are going to keep going. I also want to throw Joe Burrow into your conversation for the best players in the NFL. His
Sure.
defense is absolutely freaking terrible, and that guy is
Sure.
just going out and like leading the league in passing yards. He's like, what was it? He's got 3 straight games with 250 passing yards and 3 touchdown passes or something. Like, I can't remember the exact stat, but like, his numbers are off the charts this year, and he's playing some of the best football he's ever played, but nobody's paying
Agreed.
attention to him because the Bengals are trash. So there you go.
Yeah, for sure. I just feel like Josh Allen right now is in like unstoppable mode. Like, what do you do? He does everything.
He proved it. Yeah, like
He'll
he literally was unstoppable on Sunday. Like,
he'll beat you with his legs. He's dropping dimes, so he'll beat you with his arm. But the thing that's really separating him and taking him to the biggest level that he's ever been at right now is the mental aspect of his game. I just feel like he's processing the field so much better than he ever has at any point of his career, which is kind of evidenced by the fact that he's got like, what, 30, 32 total touchdowns or something like that. And he's got 6 complete turnovers total. 1 fumble loss, 5 interceptions, and they've played 13 games now. His mental part of the game, seeing the field, seeing the blitzes coming, knowing what the defense is doing, processing his reads. That's what's kind of separated Josh Allen to me and made him to the point where I think he's unstoppable. I don't mean the Bills are unstoppable. They literally just lost a game where Josh Allen put up, unprecedented historic numbers, and he's not going to do that every single game. He's going to turn the ball over eventually. A couple bad things will happen, some punts and stuff. I just feel like he's come as close to being unstoppable as he's ever been at any point of his career. I do like the Joe Burrow take too, because man, if that defense was a little bit better, we'd be talking about Joe Burrow as an MVP guy right now for sure. Yeah. So, all right. Well, enough positivity here, because the Bills did lose. And I do have one beef, and I kind of hit on it a little bit earlier. I want to circle back to this. Again, I'm fine with Sunday's loss. I really think they'll learn from this. Maybe, they'll make some adjustments. I don't know. I'm confident that the defense won't be that bad again. I don't know if it's possible to be that bad again, but the one thing they've
been blown out on the ground. Now they've been blown out through the air. And so they've shown that there's multiple ways to beat them now. And I think that the defense specifically. And so I think that could end up being problematic for the Bills when they face teams that have that ability to do that. But as we're probably going to talk about in the AFC, there's not really a whole lot of teams that can do that outside of the Ravens, who have literally already done it to the Bills.
It's funny. I think the one team that has the quarterback receiver tandem they could do to the Bills, what the Rams did, is the Miami Dolphins. But the thing is, Miami may not be in the playoffs. They're probably not going to be. And also the Bills have played them a million times. And for whatever reason, Sean McDermott knows how to stop Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Tua for sure. But
the Bengals can do it too. But again, the Bengals are not in the playoffs either. So
and I sure hope that stays that way. I'll get to them near the end of the show. We do a little AFC talk. All right, you just said it. You said, so the Bills have been decimated on the ground against Baltimore. Now they've been decimated through the air with the Rams. When this defense isn't playing good, Matt, what is the common denominator? What is the biggest, in your opinion anyway, what is the single, that it's not one thing, I know that, but what is the single biggest thing that is wrong with the Buffalo Bills defense when it looks like it did against Baltimore in week 4 and when it looks like it did against the Rams just this past week? In your opinion, what is like that one biggest common denominator, if there is one for you?
Well, there is, and I think it does come back to the front 4, especially because Sean McDermott has always said that that's where games are won and lost.
Yeah,
especially on the defensive side of the ball, is with the front 4. We're going to build through the front 4. We're going to build through the line. They weren't able to stop Derrick Henry or clog up those run lanes in the Baltimore game. They weren't able to get any pressure on Stafford. And I know Stafford is the wily vet, kind of always knows the right place to go, what's coming, what's next, everything like that. But they just didn't do enough with their front 4, even against the Rams run game. I think they ended up with 3.6 yards per attempt in their run game. But, when you talk about those short passes as an extension of the run game, Like it was really in all phases of the defense where that front four really didn't step up to the plate. I mean, Von Miller got blocked by Cooper Kupp. Like, I mean, like just stuff like that. They just didn't do enough to disrupt the Rams' offense.
I agree with you about the Rams. They didn't look necessarily great running the football, but what I will say is they had success early in the game, and it kind of changed how the Bills were playing defense. They had to bring more guys up, which really set up the pass.
Yep.
My thing is this with the Bills. First of all, show me a front four that is not effective at getting after the quarterback, and I'll show you a secondary that's not going to look as good as they normally will. But to me, the common thing is this. I think the Bills have an Ed Oliver and DaQuan Jones problem, and especially an Ed Oliver problem at this point. And if there's one thing about this game that lingers for me, even days later, that concerns me going forward, like I'm not Teron Johnson is going to be better. All right, he didn't have a good game. He'll be better. Terrell Bernard, he'll be better. Christian Benford will be better. Rasul Douglas, he'll be better. Taylor Rapp, he'll be better. Ed Oliver and DaQuan Jones in the middle of that defense, if they're not better, this is what's going to cost the Bills again in January. Like, that's what scares me. That's my biggest lingering thing from this game. Defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills this season has not been really good. The defensive line as a whole was a complete no-show in Los Angeles, but we got to talk about Ed Oliver at this point, which, by the way, this isn't starting to be just limited to this show now, it seems. People are talking about Ed Oliver more this week. I've noticed that. He was asked specifically about Ed Oliver multiple times, Bobby Babich, during the press conference, Zoom conference on Monday, and he basically said he's got to find the ball. He's got to be better. That's his way of saying he needs to be better. Look, he's not a big guy. He's an undersized defensive tackle, which is fine. I don't expect him to be Starlo Tutele or Pat Williams or Ted Washington against the run. I understand that wholly, okay? But his job is to be, a menace, a presence, a guy who penetrates, a guy who, if he's not getting sacks, is at least forcing throws. He's got one sack this season, man. One sack this season, Matt. That's what he's got this year. He's awful in run defense. I looked it up on PFF. He's like 111th out of 141 defensive tackles this year in run defense, and he's 8th from the bottom in tackling. He's just not been good against the run, which, okay, but you better make up for that in other ways, and he's not. He's got one sack. He's one sack. And I know some people out there are going to cover for him and show some clips to show how disruptive he's been. 2-3 games? Dude, at the end of the day, one sack is one sack in 12 games, 11 games he's played this year. It's just brutal. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, he's had some flash plays for sure. I can't remember exactly who the opponent was, but there was one play where he literally hip tossed the guard and made a pressure on a one-on-one. Like he's had good individual plays. We said this really his whole career that he's always had those flash plays. It's more about stringing together consistent plays over and over again, and we just haven't seen enough of that from him. So we've talked about extending Greg Rousseau because he's had those flash plays, but he's had consistent flash plays throughout the year.
Right.
And we're kind of still banking on him getting better. If you're going to give him that huge extension, they did the same thing with Oliver. They were banking on him getting better, and he still just stayed inconsistent since signing that contract extension. We need that consistency from him. And I don't know if it's a motor issue. I don't know if it's something else going on, like last year when he was hurt coming down the stretch. But for whatever reason, he has just not been consistent this year or really any other year.
Do you think the Bills consider him a star? Is he a star player? Maybe not necessarily in our eyes, but in the Bills' eyes, I feel like they do. The fact that he's a top 10 pick. They made him a top 10 pick. They gave him a 4-year, $68 million extension, which was a couple seasons ago now. And I get it. I know there's guys who make a lot more money than that, but still, I looked it up. He's the 18th highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL. To me, he's Jordan Phillips or Tim Settle over the last couple of years, basically, with a bigger ceiling because he does flash. And he's had 2 really good games that I can remember. He was really good in week 2 against Miami, and I thought he was really good against the Chiefs. But there's probably been, so that's 2 games. He's probably had 4 games where you could say he's fine. And he's probably had 4 games this year just like this Rams game where he was quite literally non-existent. He was a non-factor. I think he had one rush on Stafford during the game. I'll give him that. Aside, but again, dude, he's supposed. That's why I asked you. He's supposed to be a star player. He is not playing anything like a star player. And DaQuan Jones has a moment here and there. First play of the game, he had a beautiful tackle for a loss. And that was pretty
Mhm.
much the last you heard from DaQuan. DaQuan's old, man. He's long in the tooth. I love the dude. I don't know what you can expect from him right now, but I look at this, the middle of the defense, and I'm like, if there's something that's going to derail this season, it's going to be in the middle of this defense, man. Ed Oliver's got to be better. To me, he's supposed to be one of the five, say maybe five best players on this team, and he's not playing anything like a top 15 player right now, let alone a top 5 player.
Yeah, to answer your question, like, do you think the Bills think he's a star? I'm like, they certainly paid him like that and then wanted him to
Mhm.
be that. But I don't know if he's taken that next step. And whether it's like I said, the consistency issue or whatever. Like, he flashes star plays, he just needs to do it more often. And as far as Daquan goes, like, when they re-signed him, they wanted beginning of the 2023 season Daquan, and they haven't really got that. They've got end of the 2023 season Daquan when he came back from his injury. He
Yeah.
hasn't he hasn't made those impact plays that he was making at the start of last year. Maybe he's still like not 100% following that injury, but like, dude's what, 33 years old? Is he ever going to be fully recovered from that injury? So I saw that the Michigan defensive tackle declared for the draft, and I'm like already like in my brain starting to think of how the heck the Bills could trade
Graham.
up to get
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
into the top 5 or 10. I'm like, that's probably not going to happen, but that'd be cool. Like,
It's funny you say that because as much as I absolutely despise in a season like this where the Buffalo Bills are 10-3 and very, very, very much in the Super Bowl mix, I despise thinking about next year in the future. But I can't stop looking at this football team right now and looking at DaQuan Jones and looking at what Ed Oliver is doing and saying, how is defensive tackle not priority one for the Bills? And I know, like, Joe from Queens loses his damn mind. He wants to get receivers every single year, and the Bills have invested a lot of money and a lot of draft capital into this defensive line. Yet here we
yes,
go.
they have.
We're ending the year 2024. We're going to be going into 2025. And to me, it's not even debatable right now. The number one priority for this defense, or for this team, I should say, is the defensive line. You could take edge, you could take defensive tackle, you take them both. They need help in both areas right now.
Mhm.
Is just I don't
They
know,
do.
it's just mind blowing to me. I continue to feel like, obviously, Josh Allen is the biggest key, always will be, but going into the playoffs, to me, you need Ed Oliver and DaQuan Jones playing at the level that they're capable of. One more question, then I want to get to a break, and then, like I said, I got some Sean McDermott and some Milano stuff I want to get to after the break too. But this is a kind of a weird question to you, okay? Because I don't like the Bills playing in a nickel all the time. I don't know. And this might be, and let me preface this might be kind of a dumb question, and some people are probably going to roll their eyes. But I think part of the reason why they not necessarily play nickel, everyone plays nickel, not as much as the Bills, but everyone plays nickel. But I think
Mhm.
the biggest reason why the Bills play nickel so much is because Taron Johnson is just too good to come off the field. He's too good of a player. He's literally an all pro slot corner, right? Would you be open to a scenario next year? You can't do it now this season, but you might want to consider maybe moving him to safety in 2025 so he could be out there every week. Or maybe you have who's the Kenny Moore, I think, the Colts slot corner, that really good slot corner.
Yep.
And when they play a base, he actually plays outside corner too. So he'll play a little bit outside corner. And then when they go to a nickel, he goes into the slot. But do you think there should be a scenario going forward with Taron Johnson, probably too late this year, where the Bills could get into more 4-3 looks? Because I just think this defense is too undersized. I think teams have ran the ball effectively enough on them. And I think as it gets colder and in January, you might, and depending on who you play, if you play Denver, you play Baltimore in the playoffs, you play the Chargers, these teams are going to run the ball down your throat. They're certainly going to try to anyway. Um, the Bills are really going to play a nickel defense the whole entire game because you want to keep Taron Johnson on the field. Gets to a point where you're like, Dorian Williams is a pretty stout linebacker right now. You're going to play some 4-3 looks, but then Tehran comes off the field. And I think it's too late in the year for him to play outside corner or safety. But you think about that, like maybe in the future, maybe moving Tehran to at least part-time to another spot so you can get in some of these 4-3 looks, because these bigger, more physical teams, man, in January, especially in January, I really think they're going to try to cram the ball down the Bills' defense's throat.
I mean, I at least understand the sentiment.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird week to ask it because like there's no way they should have come out of nickel against the Rams at all, and so like just because of like the Rams, like there were three wides a good chunk of that game.
Mhm.
Plus they had Cup and Nakua, and they weren't really running that effectively. And we even saw Taron Johnson come up with a really nice run fill. I like
Sure.
how Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt highlighted that play where he came up and blew up that running play. So, like I said, the timing of the question is like throwing me a little bit, but
It's weird. It's a
I,
weird random thought I
like
had.
yeah, and like next year, Rasul Douglas isn't under contract, so they may they may be counting on Khair Elam. So if like Johnson takes Elam off the field in some of those outside cornerback scenarios, like you can see a world where that happens. Damar Hamlin is also going to be a free agent. So say Cole Bishop's coming in, like you'd probably end up taking Taylor Rapp as the strong safety. So you probably end up taking Rapp off the field and putting Johnson in his spot. And I think Rapp's played pretty well. So like, I don't know necessarily how it fits. I understand wanting to get three linebackers on the field during some of those plays, but like, I don't necessarily know if Johnson replacing, say, Rasul Douglas for a play so that Dorian Williams can come on the field is getting your 11 best guys on the field either. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I can see it, but like, especially in like a game against the Ravens in January in Baltimore, or well, it would be in Buffalo if they're playing each other. But like, it's in Buffalo, the elements, like I can see a game where the Bills might have to go to a 4-3 defense against the Ravens.
yeah. I don't think that's the only team. I think Denver with a rookie quarterback who's
Yeah.
going to run the football is definitely an opportunity there. And like I said, the Chargers as well. Yeah, just a thought of mine. Like I said, it's just been kind of creeping around my mind. And maybe not so much this year, next year. I want this defense to be a little more flexible. And how could you be a little more flexible going from nickel to 4-3 without getting Taron Johnson, your all-pro guy, off the field? That was the prevailing thought. Anyway, take a quick break. Sean McDermott stuff. And then, like I said, I want to get into this Matt Milano potential dilemma as well. Right, I'm back here, Matt Warren, SB Nation. My mind's just going all over the place, man. I'm talking about Travis Henry, bobbleheads, Taron Johnson moving to safety, all kinds of stupid shit going on with this show today. All right, so Sean McDermott admitted on Monday after a post-game press conference, immediately after on Sunday, where he really didn't take accountability for calling that timeout at the time. He actually sounded like he thought it was the right thing to do. He certainly backtracked on Monday and admitted that it wasn't the best use. And, I'm paraphrasing, but he said what he always says, learn from this. It's part of the process. I think he used the word process too during his spiel on Monday. Here's the thing with Sean McDermott, which scares me, man. He does always learn from his mistakes. He really does.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's the problem. Sean McDermott just consistently finds creative new mistakes to make that cost his football team. I don't say it cost him the game. It didn't cost him the game.
No, it didn't.
It hindered. It didn't help their opportunity to win at the end. And there were a couple other things as well during the game. The timeout, of course, was the big thing. A lot of people were very critical of him not declining that penalty that would have made it fourth down, which the Rams would have went for anyway. I'm convinced of that. But a lot of people have been complaining, and I think rightfully so, that, well, it's 3rd and 16, and then you give them a free 10 yards by playing a soft zone and just inviting them to dump the ball off and get 10, 11, 12 yards. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. My point was about the timeout mistake, what he said, learning from it, another first-time mistake we've seen from Sean. Where are we at right now? Where are you at right now, confidence-wise, with Sean McDermott? This is the guy who I believe you and I were talking about a week or so ago is at least deserving to be in the conversation for NFL Coach of the Year. 1 week later, one stupid mistake from Sean later, and you and I'm asking you, what's your confidence in Sean? What is your confidence in Sean right now?
Um, my confidence in Sean McDermott is that he's still one of the best coaches in the NFL for 6 days and 21 hours of the week. And during the games, I just don't always know what the hell's going to happen over on that sideline. I will say this, to be fair to him, that other coaches make mistakes like that literally all the time. There's like,
Sure.
you can count on one hand the coaches who I haven't seen make a big late game blunder as far as timing goes. I think McDermott's catching so much heat from this because Tom Brady immediately freaking clocked it. He immediately said, "You can't do this. You can't do this," on the broadcast. And so every Bills fan heard this guy who's been an announcer for half of a season, who outcoached our head coach, who's been a head coach for 8 years or whatever. And like immediately, that's when the narrative started. I wrote it up for Buffalo Rumblings as soon as it happened. But like Brady knew that you couldn't run the ball. Like, yes, it's a high percentage play, getting 1 yard with Josh Allen on a QB sneak, but the downside of not getting it is very risky. Whereas you can do 3 passing attempts in the same amount of time as that one run, plus peeling everybody off the pile and getting back on the line. So I thought it was a mistake at the time. Obviously, I think it was a mistake now. But like you said, it took them their winning percentage down by like a minuscule amount because they were already very unlikely to win. I think the bigger thing that hurt them was the 4th down call that we talked about. And I said it in real time. You can go back and check my Twitter that the Bills should decline the penalty. Not only did it lead to like almost the exact same down and distance, but it took another 40 seconds off the clock. And at that point in the game, the Bills needed the time, as we saw at the end of the game with the timeout. So it costing them time is just as important as them like
Sure.
being able to get the 3rd down stop. Like that's just as important. And it's the part of that conversation that folks aren't mentioning. So am I really confident in Sean McDermott? No. Am I really confident in most NFL coaches to make that decision in real time? Probably not. I mean, there's a reason that a lot of those folks, and the Bills have one too, have a game management coordinator that are supposed to be telling coaches what to do in that situation. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's, I even said this in my article after the game. Was it a reflex that they called timeout? Like, why did they line up to run the ball anyway? Even I'm supremely confident in Josh Allen getting that 1 yard for the touchdown, but the downside's just so high that if you have a game management person in the building, in coach's ear, they should be saying that from the moment that, I can't, who was it? Amari Cooper get tackled at the 1 or whatever on the play before that. From the moment, it doesn't really matter, but Shakir. Okay, like from the moment that previous play happens, you have to be in Coach McDermott's ear saying, "We have to go passes. We don't have time to get stopped on a run." Like everyone's like, "Well, why didn't they just call 2 plays in the huddle?" Because by the time you peel everybody off the pile anyway, it's another 20, 30 seconds when you only have whatever it is, 62 seconds when the play starts. And so it takes too much time. So the timeout wasn't the bad decision. It was the run that was the bad decision. Can we at least say that? Like once you call the run and it gets stopped, they have to call timeout. So like the bad decision is actually the run, not the timeout.
I half agree with you. I still think the timeout was the bad decision. I would have rather lost 15 to 18 seconds of game clock and kept that timeout, honestly, if it were me. But what you say is also right. Now, look, I'm not going to say Sean McDermott is low-hanging fruit to be critical of him because the timeout was just a terrible call. Plus, you're the game manager. Look, if you run a company and someone in your department screws up, it's on you. You're the manager. You're the one who's got to go to the big boss, and you got to answer for that. And then you handle accordingly. You're the CEO of this organization. You're going to get the bullets, whether they deserve it or not. One point that you bring up that I love is I feel like maybe it was probably Joe Brady, but it could have been Josh Allen who decided to do this himself as well, run that ball too. Like they're not catching the strays that I feel like they should be right now for this whole end of the game ordeal. To me, my mindset would have been this. Yeah. You got the ball at the 1 yard line. Throw the ball on 1st and 2nd down. And if you don't score and you still haven't gotten a yard and you got to score the touchdown, then run the ball. Maybe then that's when you run it. I get the sentiment. Look, Josh Allen from 1 yard has pretty much been unstoppable all year. And if he scores like he probably does 8.5 out of 10 times, we're not really having this conversation because they score a touchdown and they still have all 3 of their timeouts. But to me, it's like run the ball. have Josh throwing it, or not run the ball, throwing in the end zone. You got at least 2 cracks at it. If you don't get up first or second through the air, now it's third and goal, run the ball. At
Mhm.
that point, you do the sneak. That's, I just, it's all around bad management, but it's like every time it's just like Sean just won't let you get confident enough in him because something like this just seems to always come up. Ed Oliver and
Yeah.
Daquan Jones in the middle of that defense remains to me my biggest concern about this team going forward in the playoffs. Number 2 is, without question right now, is just, is Sean McDermott going to do something that hurts his team in a very critical point? Go ahead.
There's been 5 close games the Bills have played this year. He's ended one of them well, which is the Chiefs going forward on 4th and 2. You
Yep.
know, try to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, push to a 2-score game. That was the good one. There's been one that was kind of up in the air as a toss-up as far as I'm concerned, which was letting Tyler Bass kick that long field goal with 10 seconds left. Because if
Mhm.
he misses that, now the Dolphins have a chance for a Hail Mary or their own long field goal. So that was kind of a toss-up. It ended up working out, which, again, I'm grateful for. But then there were 3 bad decisions that he made. The Bills was like 2nd and short against the Cardinals late in the game, up 3. And instead of trying to get the first down and end the game, they took a knee and kicked a field goal to make it um, a
Yeah.
6-point game. A 6-point game with like whatever it was, 40 seconds left. The Cardinals drive down into Bills territory and have a shot at winning that game because the Bills didn't try to win the game. Again, bad management at the end of the game. Then we saw what happened at Houston. They're backed up against their own goal line with no timeouts. Josh Allen's having a bad day, like just not a good time to try to march the length of the field with 45 seconds. They end up getting a short punt. The Texans get one pass play in, kick the field goal. They win the game in regulation because the Bills mismanaged the end of that game. And then, of course, this one at the end of this game. So that's 3 different ways Sean McDermott has blown the late game, or almost blown the late game in this season, or made bad late game decisions, let's say. So 1-3-1, like not great numbers from your experienced coach of the year level head coach.
That's concerning. No question about it. That's concerning. Here's something that's comforting, though, real quick. Little side note. Joe from Queens on the post-game show Sunday night, and he's not really good for any good takes. Usually they're just mean takes. They're mean takes that resonate with fans. But seriously, he compared Khalil Shakir, and I thought this was silly until I really started to think on it. He said that Khalil Shakir has a lot of Andre Reed in him.
Okay.
And I'm like, interesting. Because I think of Andre Reed, as a faster, I don't want to say bigger, but he's more of an outside guy who did work the middle of the field. I mean, he excelled. He made a living working the middle of the field in that day and age. But man, oh man, the breaking the tackles, the yards after the catch, the deceptive speed, like it don't look like he's moving that fast. Like that touchdown,
Right.
that 51-yard touchdown he scored Sunday. Next thing you know, whoop, breaks, he's off and running, and then 2 guys they have a shot at tackling him, but they don't even come close. If you're old enough to have watched Andre Reed play, or you watch his highlights at least, you know that Andre Reed did that a lot. You see that? You see a little bit of
I can see
Khalil
that.
and Andre with Andre. Yeah, you do.
I mean, I wouldn't. That's like you said. It's not the player I would have gone to, but like they have that deceptive speed. They've got like shiftiness and the good feet and all that stuff. Shakir just has such incredible contact balance, and I know we've talked about this already. Like he gets hit and just will not go down, and that's how some of those highlight reel touchdown catches he's had over the years. Like it's just because somebody hit him and didn't wrap him up and try to take him down. So he's pretty slick and elusive. And I know that Andre was pretty elusive back in the day. I haven't watched Andre Reed highlights in a long time, so give me a break. Like I was like 8, whatever. But like he's obviously got some of that in him. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. What I don't want to say a pleasant surprise. What a pleasant development he's become.
Oh
Khalil
yeah.
Shakir. What an important, trustworthy. He's Cole Beasley in terms that Josh could trust him to make a catch, but he's also more than that because he can take a 7-yard catch and turn it into 50 yards. It's just been awesome to see. All right, so we're like roughly, I don't know, 45 minutes into the show. The title's Matt Milano, a dilemma. Is there a dilemma coming here? The thumbnail's at, I suppose we should probably tackle this subject at this point. A potential Matt Milano dilemma. How long do the Bills stay patient with him right now? I mean, if you watch him play the last two games, it's clear as day the rust is there. You have seen a couple signs. I've seen a couple signs where you could see the little tiny flashes, a little bit of old. He's getting his feet, still underneath him a little bit. But again, man, this is not about Matt Milano. This is about the Buffalo Bills right now, okay? And you still got 4 games left. But how patient are you with him? How long do you wait to see if either A, that Russ is going to get knocked off and he returns to something that resembles what he was in 2022 before these injuries? Or do you start to get that paranoia going that he is the 2022 Tre White, who never made it all the way back? He was on the field, but he was just a straight up liability. And of course, you don't need to have a long memory to remember Von Miller last year, who was just an absolute disaster and probably shouldn't have even been active. But those guys were on the field because, hey, that's Von Miller. Hey, that's Tre White. Right now, it's, hey, that's Matt Milano. Like, I think you can make at least a fair case right now that if there was a playoff game this Sunday, if Detroit was a playoff game, that Dorian Williams might be the better linebacker right now today. He might not be the better linebacker 3 weeks from now if Matt Milano gets to where he's going to be. So if you're the Bills right now, you're Sean McDermott. How are you handling this? Do you have a
Well,
dilemma if you're Sean?
I mean, 3 weeks from now is what I really care about. And so if
Mm-hmm.
Matt Milano is going to be the better linebacker 3 weeks from now, I'm going to stick with Matt Milano. The difference between the two guys you mentioned, Tre and Von, is that Milano, at least this time, is coming back from an arm injury or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, the upper body injury, not the lower body injury like Tre and Von. And so, yeah, he broke his leg last year, but that shouldn't sap him of his speed and his agility and all this other stuff. So I'm assuming that this is rust and not a byproduct of the injuries. And so I'm definitely willing to wait out Matt Milano for an extended period of time as he knocks off what I think is rust and not like his body breaking down and not like severe physical limitations brought on by those injuries, like the two guys that you mentioned. And so I think that's the biggest caveat I would throw into there when you're comparing him to those other two guys. I haven't seen anything out of Milano that's just like, man, get him off the field. He can't even protect himself. He's getting washed, like all that stuff. Like at least not consistently. So they played him 77% of the snaps against the 49ers in the snow. It was up to like 84% against the Rams. So he's still not playing 100% of the snaps. They're still, I mean, I wouldn't say they're easing him in, but they're not like 100% completely relying on him at this point.
Well, he's played every snap in 2 games
Yes.
that has been a non-dime defense. Like Dorian Williams has not seen the field now in 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been all Matt Milano. The way they're using him tells me that Sean is willing, and Bobby Babich, who I'm sure has
Yeah.
plenty of say in this as well, that they're willing to get him his work now. And they think that getting him all these snaps is going to get that rust off, because I thought, maybe you did as well, I'm sure a lot of people did, that the way that Milano would come back would be to be eased in, where maybe
Yep.
he's alternating series with Dorian Williams. That hasn't been the case. Dorian Williams has not played defensive snap since Matt Milano has been back. What I did notice early in the Rams game was that Matt Milano did look, his feet were not underneath him. He got shook bad. I don't remember if it was Corm or Williams. It was one of those guys, but he got shook pretty damn bad. Anyway, he just looked a little slower, but then it did look like he got a little bit faster as the game went on. I think maybe because he returned in Frisco with all the snow, where everybody was on a bad track. Everybody's feet were
Yeah.
pattering to move around, and Milano didn't look out of place. I thought maybe in the first part of the game against the Rams, a little bit, not much, but a little bit. But then he's kind of got it under him. Yeah, it's like the fact that he's played as much as he has tells me that they're willing to give him, and they still got time too, because you could
Mm-hmm.
also look at it as, all right, well, he'll play this week again. And then even after this week, you still got 3 more games. And I'll tell you what, if 3 weeks from now he still looks iffy, that's maybe when you could go back to Dorian Williams and still have time before the playoffs. So I guess there's still time. What's your confidence level that you're going to see him get to? I don't want to say 2022 Matt Milano, because that's just there's not a lot of cats out there that were like 2022 Matt Milano, but how much better do you think he realistically can get this season right now? Do you think there's a lot of room for improvement with him still?
I mean, he didn't really get the training camp this year. He's
Right.
was on the shelf for a year. Like he realistically, he's getting back into playing shape. Like there's a lot of, or at least game speed playing shape. There's a lot of factors that are going into it. So I'm pretty confident that he'll get to, yeah, he's 2 years older, gone through two major injuries. I don't expect him to be as good as he was in 2022, but there's no reason to think he won't be, you know, well, he'll be the second best linebacker on the team. Like, at least say that.
Do you get a sense? I mean, from Blue Sky, Twitter, wherever, your Facebook friends, fans, you get a sense that the angst, the worry about Matt Milano is growing right now because it's been 2 games and, you want quick returns. Not you necessarily, but people do. You hope for quick returns and you're not getting that with Matt. Do you get a sense that there's a
Right.
growing angst and anxiety about him?
No, nobody's talking to me at all about Matt Milano. So like,
No.
it's not like, I don't know why. I think it's because like in these certainly against the 49ers, we didn't want to like make any like big,
Sure.
takeaways from that because of how bad the field was during the game. But like this game, it just felt like it was more the passing game as opposed to like the run game and like the interior stuff that I just haven't heard a whole lot of folks like questioning whether Milano should be out there yet. I think if, and probably when, the Lions run it through the middle of the Bills defense like 10 times in a row to start this game, I think that's when you're going to start hearing a lot more of the Milano. So we're probably ahead of that conversation by just a smidge, which is where we want to be. We want to be anticipating where the fans are going here, Pat Moran. But so I think that that's going to be a bigger issue when, you get your Lions tight ends, your Lions running backs, and that awesome Lions offensive line, and they're just having their way with the front six of the Buffalo Bills defense. Front seven, let's include Karen Johnson.
I like how you said not if, but when they run the ball down the Bills' throats.
It's gonna happen
10 times. Yeah, look, if you're really going to put a little bit of judgment on Matt Milano, it will be his third game back, and I don't think you're going to get as a linebacker between those two running backs and Laporta. I don't think you're going to get tested much more than you're going to against the Detroit Lions. So if you really want to see it scale where Matt Milano's at, this will be the week where you definitely get a good idea. One more Bills thing before we wrap up. A couple of quick AFC things too as well. But I'm going to kind of get out in front of this because I have and I don't have any inside sources or knowledge. I want to be clear about that. But I have a pretty reasonable amount of confidence that a guy who has not played in a long time, a guy who has not been active lately, is going to end up playing a big, big role in this big game on Sunday. And that guy I'm talking about is Kyrie Elam. Rasul Douglas hurt his knee. First, he got clocked in the ribs. Friendly fire again from Taylor Rapp, his teammate. Second time Taylor's done that this season. But then I believe he hurt his knee too later in the game, and he couldn't return. So at the end of the game, it was Jamarcus Ingram, who I thought was okay. I mean, he got that one pass interference, which it was, but like his hands, he made such a beautiful play on the ball, but his hands were just on the hips, just a little bit too much. But anyway, Jamarcus is active on game days because he's just a much more versatile guy. He can play the dime. He's an outside corner. He's a special teams guy. Kyrie Elam doesn't have any value in those spots. So that's why he's been active. However, Rasul Douglas out, Kyrie Elam will be active, and Kyrie Elam will almost certainly be the starter. So he'll go from inactive to starter. Man, that's a big ask against, again, Jameson Williams, St. Brown, Tim Patrick, a lot of good players on this team. Kyrie Elam's going to go from inactive, irrelevant guy on this football team very likely this week. Sean McDermott, for what it's worth, said we'll see this week. He didn't say day to day. I don't like that. You know how the Bills have been with these injuries. And with a guy like Douglas, they're probably going to play it cautious, just like they seem to be doing with Kincaid and Keon Coleman and other guys earlier this season. Anyway, my point is this. Kyrie Elam's going to go from inactive to very important Buffalo Bill cornerback real quick this week, Matt.
Yeah, and he might not just be playing for his own future contract. He might be playing for Rasul Douglas's future contract this week too. So if Douglas is a free agent at the end of this year, if they just want to move forward with Elam as the starting cornerback next year in the final year of his rookie deal, I mean, Khair Elam could earn that really over these last couple weeks or these next couple weeks if he plays well, if Douglas is out for a game or two. So there's a lot of other things at play here, like the future of the Bills cornerback position could be in play with Rasul Douglas being out and Khair Elam being in the game. And they really could have used him on against the Rams on Sunday, but like you said, he doesn't have any special team stuff, and so they sat him down. And I understood that decision. Like the last few weeks, he's been the healthy scratch, but they could have used him on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last couple minutes here. Switch to just a little general NFL talk. Guys, broken. Kansas City does it again. They do it again. It's unbelievable. This one was the doink kick that goes in. It's unreal. That number one seed, I don't say it's gone. Close to gone, though. The Bills are 2 back now, and they're playing the Lions, obviously, this week. Chiefs still, they can still lose 2 games, but 3 games is a really big ass. I think the Bills need to win out to have a realistic chance to getting the number one. I don't know how I feel about the Chiefs right now because sooner or later, it feels like the luck's got to run out. They're not a very good team. They're really not. And it feels like there's a lot of teams that could beat them. A lot of teams that could beat them. But then I look at them and say, well, they're battle tested. They do. If there's one team in sports, certainly in the NFL, that knows how to hit that on-off switch, it seems, when it gets playoff time, it's the Chiefs as well. And it certainly appears likely that they're A, going to get a bye, and B, the road to the Super Bowl is going to go through Arrowhead yet again. It's like, yeah, they're lucky. They're not that good, but they're the Chiefs. They're winners, and they're at home. They're going to be a very, very, very tough team to beat, and they'll probably win in the playoffs if they have to, the same way they've been in the regular season. But it's frustrating as a Bills fan anyway, watching the Chiefs continue to win the way they are, man. It's crazy, ain't it?
It very much is. And when the ball hit the upright, I thought that it came back out. Like I thought that it missed it. And I'm like, oh, they finally ran. Oh, I saw the arms go up. And I'm like, oh, of course. But no, you're not wrong about the 1 seed, about it going through Arrowhead. But like we talked about this last week, in the last 5 weeks for the Chiefs, they have 4 playoff teams. They just beat the Chargers. That was one of them. They played the Browns this week, which Jameis Winston's going to show up. Like you tell me, and then I can tell you who's going to win the game. And then they played the Texans, Steelers, and Broncos in the last 3 weeks of the season. So there are potential losses on their schedule for sure. And it shouldn't be unstated. Like their schedule, their last Sunday 1 p.m. game is this Sunday, because then they're playing a short week on Saturday. They're playing a shorter week on Christmas. So there are definitely potential pitfalls for them over the course of the rest of this season. Obviously, the Bills need to do their part in order to get that 1 seed.
I laid it out last week for the Bills. I feel like I said you split these 2 games. The Rams, Detroit, you got to win one of them. You win one, you should absolutely win your last 3, and you end up 14-3. And I think I still think that gets it done. Obviously, losing to the Rams, they lose that leeway now with this week. I want to be real clear, though. This is no Bills Lions preview. I'll have that on Friday, by the way. But the Bills are capable of beating the Detroit Lions. Let me just put that out there. Detroit's got a team full of superstars. What did I just say a half hour ago? Josh Allen's the best player in the NFL. He's the best player on the field. Let's not forget that. The Bills have plenty of playmakers on both sides of the football. They are more than capable of beating the Detroit Lions. I ain't going to bet my house on it, but I'm just saying they're capable of it. But anyway, so that Kansas City, they at least look good, especially now between that lucky field goal at the end of the game to win, and the Bills lose. And the Steelers right now, they're 10-3, dude. They're tied with the Bills. Obviously, the Bills have the tiebreaker, obviously, because the Bills are still the 2 right now, even though they have the same record. The Bills are again a tough test on Sunday at Detroit. But you look at Pittsburgh, and I think maybe the reason why too many people aren't taking them, too serious as the number 2 is that they still got to play at Philly, at Baltimore, the Kansas City Chiefs, and Cincinnati. You got to be like, yo, that's, that certainly sounds like at worst or at most or at least, whatever way you want to phrase it, 2 losses, right? It's like the Bills, even if the Bills lose this game in Detroit, I still think the Bills are sitting pretty damn pretty, for the 2nd seed.
I think that's right. Yes.
Pittsburgh's good though, man. Give them their props. You're not as sold on them as I am. I can tell.
I mean, their big signature win over the course of the last few weeks is the game against the Bengals. But like they split with the Browns. They did end up beating the Ravens by a couple points. They beat the Commanders by 1 point. Like, but then you go back to the beginning of the season: Giants, Jets, Raiders. They beat the Chargers early in the year, so that's a good win for them. They beat the Broncos early in the year. That's a good win for them. They beat the Falcons early in the year when the Falcons were good, so that's a good win for them. They're a good team, and their defense can win any game that they're in. Russell Wilson's playing really well.
Yeah.
Here's a little secret. That guy's probably going to sign like a $40 million a year contract at the end of this year. Like it's going to be like people are going to be floored with the amount of money that Russell Wilson's about to sign for. So
probably there's
a lot to like about the Steelers.
Look what Kirk Cousins just got with Atlanta. But anyway, yeah, look, Pittsburgh's formidable. But my point was they're tied, and I still think even if the Bills were to lose this week, I'd still say advantage Bills. There
Probably.
Miami, for the time being, saved their season this past week. They're still in the mix at 6-7. A big late win against the Jets where they trailed by 8. Very late, won it in overtime. But I'll keep going back to it. Their schedule, they still got to play. And they're 2 games back right now of the playoffs, with just 4 left. But they're at Houston. They're at home against Frisco, and Frisco's not the same Frisco this year. They're at Cleveland. They're at the Jets. If they could get past the Houston Texans, Matt, all bets might be off for them having a legit chance, at least a legit chance to win out. Now, that said, you know how they play historically in the cold, and going to Cleveland, that's going to be a tough game. But there's a silver lining. As much as I would love to take credit for it too, something that could hurt Miami, even if they do win out here, at TJD MCR. I got to give this guy credit because I can't steal his take, and I didn't realize this till after.
Okay.
But he said a silver lining for, if you hate Miami and you want them out of the playoffs, a silver lining about Kansas City getting lucky and doing what they're doing right now is they very well could have that top seed locked by the final week, going into the final week, which if they do that, they're obviously going to sit all their guys. Who do they play the final week? Denver. Denver gets a win against Kansas City. That hurts Miami. Now, Miami's got to catch Denver. They're 2 games back, and the Chargers as well, too, and Baltimore, actually. But if you're trying to catch Denver, and that's the team you think that you're going to be able to catch, and Kansas City does have that top seed locked up going into week, 18, you're not going to see Mahomes or Kelsey or any, or Chris Jones, any of these dudes. So Denver should be able to win that game, which would hurt Miami. But credit to them. I'm still in the mindset I don't want to see Miami in the playoffs, even though the Bills just own them. They just know the Bills so well. There's something about Miami. I feel like the laws of gravity, sooner or later, they're due. I know a lot of people are like, come on, man, but get them out of there. I don't want Miami in the playoffs.
It would be in Buffalo. So again, the cold weather thing comes into to play. But you were talking about the Broncos. We've mentioned everybody else's schedule. They're going against the Colts, the Chargers, the Bengals, and Chiefs over their last 4 too. So they're 8-5 now, but they could very well be like 9-8 by the end of this. And so Miami could catch them for sure. The Colts could catch them. Like I guess Cincinnati could catch them. Like there's a lot of uncertainty still around that final spot in the AFC. I don't think the Chargers are going to get caught. They're playing a couple teams that are just like down the pecking order, including the Raiders, but I think the Broncos are going to be vulnerable over this last month of the season.
You sent me scrambling here with the team you just said, Cincinnati, because that was my final point. I wanted them to lose so bad on Monday against Dallas, so bad, and they didn't. A block. I don't want to get into how that game ended. This has been a crazy season with just stupid shit happening. But look, all right, so Miami, I said, I don't want to see him in the playoffs. I ain't afraid whatsoever of Miami. I just don't want to see them, because sooner or later they're going to put it together. I just don't want it potentially to be against Buffalo. But I ain't scared of them whatsoever. I'm going to admit this on the show. I've said it a million times. I would almost rather play the Chiefs or the Ravens in any point in the playoffs in the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't give a shit how bad their defense has been all season. You talked about Joe Burrow. Man, Jamar Chase, Higgins, Chase Brown, that offense, lethal. And I mean lethal. They're only 5-8. But they went out. You just said, just Denver can end up 9-8. The Miami could lose another game or 2 games. things could happen around this league right now. Cincinnati at 5-8. Their last 4 games, they're at Tennessee. They're at home against Cleveland. They're playing Denver at home. And they're at Pittsburgh. Big game, tough game. Potentially with stakes mattering. Maybe it don't mean nothing for Pittsburgh. Maybe they've won that division and they're locked into the 3. Who the hell knows? But at Pittsburgh to end the game. Cincinnati winning out until they don't is in play. And if they get to 9-8, that's the 7th seed. I'm going to tell you straight up. If Cincinnati's the 7th seed, I'd rather lose 2 or 3 games and be the 3 seed than be the 7 seed. I do not want to play the Cincinnati Bengals in the first round. I want to be really clear about that.
Yeah, that would be something. But if the Bengals do get to 9-8, I think there's a pretty good chance that they are in the playoffs because they'll have beaten the Broncos on the way to get there. And so it could be a very interesting first round matchup. You know, Bills as the 2 seed hosting the Bengals. Now, like that game could be fireworks too, because like the Bengals defense is legitimately awful. Cooper Rush drove it down and like threw a touchdown pass on the first drive. It was their first quarter points all season. Like, I mean, that the Bengals defense is bad. And so hopefully we could outscore them. But as we have proven very recently, the Bills can't just outscore all their opponents all the time.
Man, I know you're right. Their defense is like almost historically bad, but Joe Burrow just dominates the Bills defense, man. He carves the Bills defense up. Like Patrick Mahomes, he's the GOAT. I ain't afraid to play the Chiefs. It's just there's something about like certain styles. Like I don't like playing the Ravens, but I feel like we could beat the Ravens in January in Buffalo because I think that Lamar Jackson, I think he's stoppable. Let's just say that he's stoppable. There's something about the Bengals that I want nothing to do with. I don't give a shit I don't care who their defense is. I don't care if they got a college defense. It does not matter. Joe Burrow can go out there and force Josh Allen to score. Not saying Josh can't, but I don't want Josh Allen to need to score 42 points. I think the Bills defense can contain Baltimore. They can contain Kansas City to an extent, especially if they stay healthy. I'm really confident they can. All these other teams, I ain't confident that they can contain Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals offense. So I don't want it to come to that. So if you're a Bills fan, you root for, the Bills to win every week, but whoever the Bengals are playing, root for them to lose, man. Don't want nothing to do with them.
We're big Titans fans this week. You know us. We love rooting for the Titans.
Don't love those chances. I'm so pissed at Dallas. Dallas could have put them away. It really pisses me off. Anyway. All right. Make sure you follow Matt. I'll put a link in the show notes too. Blue Sky and Twitter. Much more active as more and more people are getting on Blue Sky as well. I've had this Henry bobblehead in my hands pretty much this entire episode at this point. But anyway, it's going to do it. Thank you, buddy. Always fun having you on, man.
Thanks. It's always fun to be here.
All right, guys. I'll be back with a brand new show. What is tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday. I don't even know who the hell is going to be on the show. Someone's going to be on. Be back with you guys tomorrow.